All right. Testing. Testing. Okay, testing, testing. Okay, testing, testing. Excellent. All right. Good morning, Foxkilla. Ooh, the morning came fast. I don't know about you. It came very fast. Yeah, callback functions really they are fantastic. In general, I think you'll find that event-driven programming can make a lot of things much easier to not only build but to use as well. Um, the uh, the ability that callbacks and the observer pattern give you for building systems that don't need to care about what other systems might use it, right? It's like you build a system that doesn't really care who its users are or how they work, right? It's almost like you can think of it in terms of a service. So, okay, what services does this system provide? You've got a player system, you've got a notification system, you've got a resource loading system. All these systems just need to care about their business, right? What they do, and then the outside world only needs to care about what services that system provides. If the system doesn't provide that service, then tough luck, right? But that allows us to keep these systems really simple and focused on doing their job, only doing their job, and doing it very well. They don't care about the implementation details of other systems, or they don't even care about their existence. A system that can survive without any other systems being present is generally a pretty good, hardy thing to have. So there's actually a kind of a modern pattern that has emerged in some places called microservices, where, okay, instead of having a bunch of isolated systems that work together inside of a single program, let's make each system its own program. And then what we'll do is we'll have the systems communicate with each other through sockets on one machine. The nice part about this is that if one system has a segmentation fault or crashes or becomes unusable for some reason or unresponsive, all the other systems continue to work, right? Just because one program gets into trouble doesn't mean all the other systems running in their own isolated processes need to get halted. And so you can get some additional redundancy that way. However, my impression is that everything is a little bit more annoying to program because now the only way for any systems to trade data is through sockets and a little bit of networking. So it's a little bit more annoying to use than just a function call within the same process. I have to bet there are frameworks and stuff out there that make that a lot more fun to do now, a little bit more convenient for the programmer. But I don't use that pattern very much myself. Good morning, Ish. Ish, are you going to be applying to the Undertale part-time job? I feel like with that series focus on music, I feel like, and with your position as instructor of a course, so long as you had a game maker knowledge, I'm not sure if you do or not, it could be a good fit. Nice. Yeah, Game Maker was my first game engine. Way back when I was in, I think 7th or 6th grade. That's when I picked up Game Maker. Haven't used it for a long time though. Hey Amber, I did not watch the orchestra. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what event you're referring to, unfortunately. Cool. Dong Yuju. I think that's a really good question. It's been a little while since we did our post-mortem on that game, but one of the things that really held us back was that we had chosen Python as a scripting language, and much of our logic and many of our systems had been implemented in Python. And it was really, really great for certain reasons and not so great for others. One of the big wins was that since Python is such a it is a very well-resourced language. It has a lot of people using it, which means it has a lot of fantastic libraries. It is taught as a beginner language in many universities, and there's an abundance of community and tutorial knowledge online. So it was really great from a dev time perspective because we were all able to move very fast when using it. And unfortunately, while the developers were able to move very fast, the game itself was not able to move very fast. So we had big performance issues in our Python scripting system toward the end of development. So it was a big effort for the team. I wasn't really a part of the optimization team, but they had a big effort trying to speed it up, and they eventually did. They got to a pretty good place. Another issue that we had was that when it came time to designing and tuning, a lot of that was handled via XML. And so we had a system that was very hierarchical, very inheritance-based as far as game design and tuning of objects and stuff went. And as we've seen, inheritance can have some problems, right? Think back to our composition lecture. If you have objects that fit into two categories or two branches of an inheritance tree, you have a very awkward problem where you need to just kind of put it someplace. We did not support multiple inheritance, and the team really, moving forward, wanted to be able to support a more composition-based approach, which we were able to do in some parts of our tools, but not in all parts, and that fact bit us. Otherwise, I don't think I should say too much more, considering this is a public. I'm pretty sure the knowledge is public by now, done in postmortems and stuff like that in interviews. But I can't go too deep into development. I don't want to, just in case the team would rather have certain things stay quiet. Okay, thank you.
Well, Cuphead and his pal Bugman, they like to roll the dice. By chance they came on Devil's Game, and gosh, they paid the price. Paid the price. And now they're fighting for their lives on a mission fraught with dread. And if they proceed but don't succeed, well, the devil will take their heads.
I know the difficulty of Cuphead was one of the reasons I got into it as much as I did. I really do enjoy the kind of old school difficulty that requires you to study a game and maybe even sleep on a game, right? So try it out, experiment. I love this song. This sound right here has such an evil jewel feel to it, right? Like, this just sounds like what a diamond would sound like if it were evil. This is the Phantom Ruby fight from Sonic Mania. Essentially, this is the main boss theme. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's get going. We have a lot to cover today, and I want to apologize in advance if I stutter a little bit, if my speech is a little slow. Part of the reason why is that we have a bunch of new content for this semester. Our game design lecture received a revamp last night because I was not happy with it. And so that was a very late one for us. That's okay. Let's go through some announcements. I'll shrink my window here. Okay, there we go. So due next Wednesday, right? You're in the middle of 2 assignments right now. Technically 3. One of those is your P1 Alpha, and it's due next Wednesday. What 2 other assignments should you be working on right now? Chat, let's see if you can get it. What 2 other assignments should you be working on? Okay, you got P1 research, right, and project management, right? 2 assignments, P1 research, it's due on Wednesday. P1 project management, it's not due on Wednesday, it's due a little bit later. The reason that your research is due on Wednesday, next Wednesday, is that you're starting your P1 Gold next Wednesday, okay? And the P1 Gold is the first assignment, the first project where you really need to actually be designing your own new creative material. New mechanics, new areas to explore. And it's very, very hard to design new, interesting mechanics if you don't know what's already out there, okay? And what works and what tends to not, okay? And why. And so that's why we need to research games. If we want to make games, we have to play games, okay? So keep that in mind. How is P1 Alpha going, chat? How is P1 Alpha going now that you've kind of gotten past P1 milestone? You've implemented some stuff. You're thinking a little bit about how your architectures scale. Maybe you made a choice that doesn't scale very well, so now you're feeling that pain, right? How is it going? How's P1 Alpha going? Just started. Just started. Now hold on a second. Let me look at the schedule here, team. Because it started on Monday, all right? The assignment started Monday. I only said take 1 day off, okay? 1 day. So you should not be starting right now. If you're starting right now, then you should be expecting a little bit of crunch, unfortunately, at the end here, unless we can catch back up. Okay, let me grab the schedule for you so you can see here. Okay, this was your Tuesday. No, Monday right here was your break day. Okay, Tuesday got away from us maybe. Just started yesterday. Huge refactor. Yesterday was a huge refactoring of my code base. Got weapon switching and key stun. Fantastic, right? That feeling you get when you refactor code, when you rewrite it and can delete that spaghetti, get it out of here, right? It's an incredible feeling, and I think in part because not only is your code base improving, not only is the amount of future pain in your path reducing, but I often find that the moment of refactor is really a moment of max learning, right? It's the moment where you really realize, wow, the way I was doing it before really wasn't a good choice, and now I know a better way forward, right? It's a fantastic educational moment, and I think that's why it's so satisfying, right? It's the idea that not only is my current code base improving today, but all of my future code bases are improving in the future, right? Tomorrow. So it's a really, really great feeling, I think, for many reasons. Yep. Okay, so fantastic. I wish you all luck. Please do not take any more days off. Unfortunately, our timeline cannot support that, okay? So please make the disciplined choice. Get a little bit of time in each day, okay? I think about 90 minutes each day for this project should be fine. Okay, so I want to also know, how's Career Fair going? I heard it involved like an app and it was all virtual this semester. I'm very curious because usually we would give you a lecture off for the Career Fair, but we're not doing that this semester. So it has been hard. It's been pain. Okay, well, I know it's the first time that the system is this way. Wargaming was there, fantastic. Make sure you talk to Wargaming and other game dev companies. If you do, they'll keep coming back and more will come. Very good for the local ecosystem. A 10-minute time limit was really hard to work with. Interesting, so you were timed. Maybe that's for meetings or something. Wargaming does World of Tanks, that's correct. Yep. I believe they have a big office in Chicago. They've hired a few of my students. Kind of rough. Okay, yep. Anyway, yeah, I wish you luck. I know a lot of things are on your plate right now, and this is also the hardest part of the course. I remember the early September or mid to late September period being very tough. Career Fair was always a very anxious time. I want you to keep some things in mind during Career Fair. You only need one interview to work out, right? You only need one offer to come in. So I encourage you to apply to as many places as you can. And I also encourage you, do not have a dream job right now. Okay? Do not apply to a place hoping this interview either has to go well or my dreams are shattered. Okay? Dreams are something that you work toward progressively, right, in little steps throughout your entire career. Okay, even if you apply to a company and it doesn't work out today, come back in a year. Your portfolio, chances are, is going to look very different. Your stories under your belt will be very different. Your skill set, your maturity, professionalism might be very different. So, and your tastes might be very different. Maybe you decide, wow, actually, I found a company I want to work for more. I found a project I want to work for more. Or you go my route, you decide you want to work for a startup. So anyway, don't be too anxious about all of this. You have a long career ahead of you, and nothing is so important as it might seem right now. Okay, yeah. Sometimes we can get a little bit too emotionally invested in something, and the future starts to disappear. We can only focus on the present. We get a tunnel vision going on. But life is long, careers are long, and you're all fantastic. So it's going to go well for you in the long term, no matter what happens today. Don't worry about today. Worry about where you're headed. Okay. So anyway, hey, technical programming interviews can be very tricky, right? But what about game design interviews? I'm going to post this after class. Game designers actually have technical interviews too. And so what kind of questions do they run into? Well, Michael Siciliano, who works at Jackbox Games, he was a student of mine, and he was an IA for the course. He works at Jackbox Games now. He sent me this. It is a design interview from, I believe, Avalanche Software, which was working on Disney Infinity not too long ago. And so one of the interview questions you might have to answer is, how would you design an Ursula boss fight themed around the Little Mermaid in the Disney Infinity kind of third-person engine, right? What kind of things do you care about when it comes to designing that? How would you approach it? What is your approach? What ideas pop into your head, right? So anyway, scripting stuff, problem solving, a little bit of coding, even in designer technical interviews, and other stuff, ideation. So very, very interesting. One of the best things about game dev as a discipline is that, as we said in the first lecture, it is so diverse, right? You get to learn not only about how to solve very difficult programming challenges, but also what does a designer value, right? What is this wonderful, amazing world of creating games that not only function when you try to run them and function performantly, but also are fun, right? How do what do artists care about when it comes to game dev? What do musicians care about when it comes to game dev, right? It's this incredibly diverse world full of things for you to explore. In other words, you can just keep learning essentially forever in this field. It's fantastic. Okay, so we got a Wolverine Soft meeting tomorrow night at 7 p.m. EST in the Wolverine Soft Discord server. If you're not part of the Wolverine Soft Discord server, you're going to go to wolverinesoft.org. Soft.org. There you go. And you're going to click this button, okay? You're going to join the Discord server. At 7 p.m., we've got Stardock, which is Michigan's largest game development studio. They are a respected AA developer. They are the creators of some franchises that have done pretty well. The Political Machine. We just had some 494 and Wolverine Soft students working on that. And the Galactic Civ and Sins of a Solar Empire. And Off-World Training Company. And they are about 20 minutes from Ann Arbor. They're in downtown Plymouth. So they are we're happy to support our local developers. So please tune in for that. It's going to be a very good time. Okay, I want to do a little mini lecture for you. Who's heard of Undertale? Has anyone played Undertale? Right? Who's played Undertale, chat? Yes. Raise the hand. Yep. So Undertale is a it was a very impactful indie game when it released in, I think, 2013, and people are still playing it and talking about it today. The soundtrack, for certain, is in my mind today. It is just so appropriate and impactful. So I want to talk about making games with small teams, because this is really an incredible story, this game. For those of you who have not played Undertale, I want to show you this trailer because it kind of explains what some of the appeal is. Okay, let's take a look. The RPG where no one has to die. What an incredible tagline. By the way, did you see this? Does this look familiar to anyone? It's pretty clear what engine the developer was playing around with during development. It wasn't GameMaker. Anyway, all right, let's keep going. So Undertale was released in 2015. I think that it said in chat the demo was released in 2013. Okay. And the team size, the core team for this game was essentially one person. And that one person was a musician by trade. That's Toby Fox right there. And he did hire out some external artwork and I think some external programming help. But I believe he did most of the game's work in essentially all of these different disciplines. It's absolutely incredible, really. The sales were just dynamite. Like, my low estimate for this game's sales is 2.5 million. And its low estimate for earnings was about $17.5 million, right? That is a lot for one-person team. And Toby had not even left college at this point. Actually, I think he was like 1 year out of college. Okay, chat, you've got what? You've got 2 years. I'm giving you 2 years to earn $17 million. Can you do it? Well, you never know, right? Toby was able to. But the question, I think, is how was he able to do this? That's the interesting part for us, all right? The game was really well received commercially and critically. And its development period was about 2.7 years. I think I got that from an interview. I can't remember which one, though. The question for us is, how on earth did one person, a musician by trade, create this entire game? From the programming, to the art, to the incredible music, to the impressive trailer and marketing done on it, right? And the answer was by making some incredibly efficient decisions. And not just in like production, but in the game design itself. Let's take a look, okay? Let's talk about aesthetics. Has anyone seen this game? Has anyone seen this game? Who knows what this game is? This is Anthem by Electronic Arts, okay? This game came out, and look at these gorgeous graphics, right? Absolutely beautiful. Toby knew he would never be able to make a game like this. He would have to go with something more like this, okay? This is a game that, in parts, can look incredibly basic. However, one thing that's very interesting about this game is that just about all of its environments look this way. So as you play, it begins to feel like more of a stylistic choice rather than a limitation. In reality, it was kind of both. One of the cool things about styling your entire game this way is that it becomes easier for you to actually produce the assets to complete the game, okay? Let's listen to an interview, okay? He decided that he was going to dodge something called feature creep, okay? Feature creep is when you make something, you put it in the game, and then you decide, you know what? What if we made it even better? Right? What if we made it even bigger? What if instead of, a single player game, we added multiplayer elements? What if instead of having a basic 2D game, we introduced some low poly 3D. And you know what? Low poly 3D looks okay, but what if we introduce some realistic graphics to it too? And it just kind of, it creeps up and scales up until suddenly your game isn't actually tractable with your resources. Okay? Create a minimum viable product. An MVP, a minimum viable product, it is the smallest thing that gets the job done. It is the bare essentials of what your game or product or tool is supposed to be. Okay? Here's an example. Google, a while ago, in their early VR efforts, they produced this. Does anyone remember this? This was called the Google Cardboard. Oh, you're right. Chow50 mentions that eventually, if you feature creep enough, you get to the everything game, which in a previous lecture we told you was not a good idea. That never ends well. So Google, in the early VR efforts, they made this thing, right? Google VR, it was called the Google Cardboard. And it was really neat because it was this super cheap looking and super cheap feeling cardboard VR headset that was, I think it was like $50 or something like that, maybe $60. And it worked. You would put your phone on the end of it, and your phone would display the VR, the split VR images, and you could get a really kind of entry-level VR experience with this, right? And it was super cheap, so a lot of people could buy it. It was cheap, effective, and it was very fast. It was the MVP for that team, okay? And I think a year or two later, they released the Google Daydream, which was this really polished VR product, this beautiful headset that looked great, it felt great, it had all of these kinks worked out of it, and it was more expensive. I think it was something like $200, $300, okay? And so this is an example of a team deciding, you know what, we're going to put out an MVP first, right? We'll really solve the core of the problem, and then we'll add the polish and the detailing later, okay? And I actually had one of my earliest assistants, Gloria Park, is on the Google Daydream and Google VR team right now, which is really, really cool. So Toby talks about this a little bit, the process of scoping down in an interview. He doesn't do many interviews, but the Game Informer show, he did one, and we were able to find it. Let's take a look at 128. Listen to what the developer has to say about the game and how he managed the scope, okay?
I was hoping, when I played Undertale, I singled out Mr. Bean as being a core influence. I love Mr. Bean as well.
How did you map out the scope of Undertale? Was it exactly the size ultimately that you produced? Did you have in mind a certain number of areas that you wanted to tackle? I mean, I guess the idea is taking on the JRPG genre. People imagine some gigantic effort, but Undertale is a pretty scaled in, great, small, insular world that you can really dive into. So how did you figure out that balance?
Well, the thing is, the thing that I learned from doing all these crappy RPG games is like whenever anybody gets this like RPG program for the first time, they're all like, I'm going to make a 60-hour-long Final Fantasy game.
Right.
And 0 people have ever done that.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, I'm just going to make an actual game that I can finish, and it's going to be like 2 hours long. Originally, I predicted Undertale was only going to be like 2 hours long. And I thought every single area was going to be as long as the first one, which is to say, like 15 minutes long. The game actually was like 3 times longer than I anticipated in the end.
Interesting.
Yeah, going into your first full game project and being super realistic about the scope of the thing seems like maybe one of the more important things that you could have gone into this armed with. It feels like so many people tend to bite off more than they can chew, especially if you look at Kickstarters and things like that, where people just can't manage how big they want this thing to be with the amount of time and resources they have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And actually, I mean, I did my Kickstarter and I said it would be out a year ago, and then it only came out like a month ago. So I'm included in that group of people that I guess underestimated how long it would take, even though I thought my scope is really realistic.
Yeah.
Getting back to you mentioned.
So, team, right? You've heard it from the dev himself. It is very, very hard to go in and make a lengthy experience with tons of content from the get-go, your first game, right? What Toby was speaking to was essentially the everything game. So everyone gets these tools that are so powerful. They're so impressive. They can do so much. And their first experience with the tools, they think, oh, wow, this is my chance. Now I can go make this beautiful RPG experience that competes with AAA, right? That blows everyone's mind. And no one has ever done that, right? And in fact, Toby had to make a ton of crappy little games on the side before this, before he could work himself up to a game that was only about 6 hours long. Undertale's not a particularly long game, but what it is it's very, very focused and it's very well scaled. And even when he had that fantastic scaling and that experience behind him, he was still a year late on this project, on delivering it. So please keep in mind, scope and feature creep are very important things to think about. You want to start very granular. Start with your MVP. Implement the mechanics first in a basic way so that you can find out if it's super fun before you invest those resources. I want to show you Undertale's battle system. Here it is. It's a very unique battle system. We're going to fight a Frogget in 18 seconds. YouTube, come on. Hey, YouTube. Here we go. That was it. That was a battle in Undertale. So one of the unique things about Undertale is that it has a traditional RPG-style fighting system, right, where you can attack an enemy. However, this is the RPG where no one has to die. And so this RPG allows you to act. There's this act button, and it allows you to do kind of context-related things. For instance, you can compliment this frog, or you can threaten the frog and try and de-escalate the fight, and then eventually end it by giving mercy to the opponent. In the meantime, what you have to do is you are this heart, right? You are this heart. It's your soul. And you use this not only in this little field in menus, but you use it as kind of this bullet hell situation where you have to dodge these little flies that come in, right? So flies come in, white pellets come in, you have to dodge them. If you can dodge them for long enough, the enemy's turn ends and you get another turn, okay? So it's a very, very interesting system. And another thing I want you to notice about this is that essentially everything in this shot right here, this shot, you could draw. And I'm being serious about that, right? If you given enough time in GIMP or Paint.net, you could probably draw this heart, right? You could probably draw these little icons down here, the UI. You could draw this grid back here. You could draw Frogget right here, this enemy, if given enough time. Now the design, the character design is fantastic and might not pop into your head, but shown the design, you could probably create this pixel art, okay? And so it's just amazing what this game is able to represent with such lo-fi graphics. And what's nice is that players kind of understand what the graphics mean, and so it accomplishes everything it needs to, and it is kind of this super efficient style that gets the job done while being very, very cheap to do, okay? And build a whole game around these, right? Even if you are not an artist. Look at this art, okay? And then look at this, okay? This is one of the earliest kind of pixel art games around, and even it has way more aesthetics for the main character than this. This is essentially the only aesthetic for the main character, okay? One of the interesting things here is this is a very abstract battle system. Okay, this heart icon is your soul. Okay, that's very abstract, right? The enemy is whatever happens to be white and fly into your box here, okay? And so that's a very abstract setup. And because of that, allows us to do a lot of unique and interesting things. Here is a battle that is particularly interesting. It is a battle against the lesser dog, and you can fight it, but acting, right? Acting itself is a very kind of general thing to do, right? It can mean anything. For lesser dog, it means you're going to be doing a lot of petting. In fact, it's the only thing you can do to the lesser dog. Right? So you get the dog excited, and it attacks you in these different ways, right? So notice what's happened here, right? In the last fight, when you clicked on Act versus the Froggy, you had Compliment or Threaten. When you're fighting this enemy, you have Pet, right? And what's cool about this is Toby did not have to draw a petting animation. Toby did not have to draw an animation of a compliment being given or a threat being given, right? The only thing he had to do was change the text in the box and then change a little bit of the logic of what happens after you click it, right? Those are relatively cheap things to do, production efficient things to do, and yet your imagination fills in the gaps. All you have to do is click pet. The game then gives you a sentence saying what the lesser dog, how it responded to that pet, and your brain, your imagination can kind of fill in the gaps of what the pet looked like. Okay? You don't need extra animation, you don't need extra sprites or anything like that. Meanwhile, because the bullet hell gameplay is dodging things in a white box, that means you can put anything in that white box if you want. You can put a dog in if you're fighting a dog, a little pixel art dog. You can put in flies in if you're fighting a frog, right? You have so much flexibility with this system because it is very lo-fi and very abstract and very general, okay? And very production efficient. It just feels like the best of all worlds, really. As if only the player's imagination can allow them to get immersed, and many people were very immersed. Let's take another look. This is a fight against Papyrus. Okay. A little bit of information. The blue things, so only white things hurt you in the box normally. The blue things will hurt you, but not if you're not moving. If you stay still, the blue things don't hurt you. So, something just happened. In this boss fight, the gameplay just changed. What used to be a bullet hell is now a platformer, because this change of color has given you gravity and the ability to jump, right? And what's amazing is that it seems so natural. The game was just about you flying around and dodging things as part of a bullet hell. Now suddenly, a crazy character shows up to fight you, and you're playing a platformer, and it's very easy to accept because all of it is so abstract. You'll notice also, if anyone's into music here, that the music, when the real fight starts, when you get transformed into platformer mode, the music changes too. It comes in much more powerfully once the real fight starts. It's just incredible. So we've got bullet hell gameplay, we've got platforming gameplay. What other types of gameplay could we possibly have in this very general and flexible system? Let's take a look. Tell me what this reminds you. Oh, I put this down here. I shouldn't have put this down here. I just spoiled the slide. Gonna have to remove that later. Okay, we're gonna fight a character called Undyne. Oop. Does this remind you of anything, team? Right? So now we have this kind of cool DDR style rhythm game where arrows come in and you have to face in the correct direction at the right time. Not only is this a new kind of way of a new genre, yet another one on top of platforming and bullet hell, but it is also it is also very kind of well guided. So you'll notice the character, the opponent, actually tells you what to do. right? Gives you a hint, you must face the danger head on if you want to survive, which means you need to point in the direction, right? It's a little shield. It also guides you very well, and we'll be talking about guidance next week, in that your default position is up, and the only attacks in the first turn that come at you are from the up direction. In other words, if you're confused at the beginning of this fight and you don't do anything, you will still be safe, okay? I wish that this was timed to the music, though, and it would feel much more like a rhythm game, and I'm certain they could have done that, but that's okay. Okay, let's take a look at, I think, one more gameplay type, okay? Gosh, I really spoiled this lecture. This lecture needs a refactor. Talking about code refactoring? No. We'll refactor this lecture. Right? So, isn't it just incredible? We went from bullet hell to platformer to rhythm game to quiz show game. And there are more styles even beyond this. What's cool about this is that there's actually more going on in this than just answering questions. There's actually some character building and relationship building as well. You may not have noticed that your partner over here, see this question, you got to answer that question in like 10 seconds. Your partner over here is giving you the answers, which many players do not notice until the quiz eventually forces them to notice this or take damage. So you see Alphys over here will study the question for you and help you out. I wonder how many of you in a chat did not notice this when you played. Anyway, it's just incredible. So bullet hell, bustle game, dating sim. There's a dating sim in here. Platformer, rhythm game. Right, you can do all of this. You have so much power and flexibility when you keep things efficient and also when you aim for an abstractness and flexibility in your design, okay? This game may not go for the richest of graphical styles, but it decides that it wants to invest in something else. It'll invest a little bit in the art, but it'll invest much more in the characters and in the world and in the mechanics, right, to bring that world to life. And as a result, I mean, the art is all this simple, so it's relatively cohesive, so after a while it becomes more charming than distracting in its basicness. So it's very impressive stuff. Anyway, what I'm asking you to do is remember this example when you are creating your new mechanics, okay, on P1 Gold, for P2, for P3. Keep it simple, at least to start with. Keep your scope down and experiment, right? Be pragmatic, be time efficient. And then once you've found something that you know has a lot of potential, that is when you invest in better art, in more mechanics, in content, story, characters, all of that. Okay? All right, let's get going. That was a pretty long mini lecture. So let's move straight into it. I've only got one other thing I want to talk to you about today, and that is a kind of game design 101. Today we're going to be focusing on interesting decisions, okay? As one of the core things you should be thinking about when you want to design something that not only works and functions technically, but is enjoyable and engaging for players too, okay? All right, let's get this going here. Boop. All right. Yes, and the music. The music is the star of the show for many people. Okay, so Game Design 101. I've got a question for you. What is a game, chat? I know it's a little bit of a funny question to ask, but what is a game to you? I want to hear, chat. Let's give you 30 seconds. What is a game? Do we have any definition for this? What is a game to you? Something that entertains. Okay, something that entertains. That's not bad. But consider that movies also entertain. And I don't think many people would call those games. Though I think some movies could be considered games. Anything interactive and rewarding. Ah, okay. That's interesting. Getting a little bit more granular. It has to be interactive and it has to be rewarding. Can you imagine things that you would call games that are not very rewarding? Interaction, a collection of mini games, an intended obstacle. Interesting. Okay, so if you have an obstacle put in front of you on purpose, that is a game. What about a course? I'm putting obstacles in front of you very much on purpose. Is this course a game? I think you might be surprised by the similarities, actually. Immersive. What games that are made almost replicate movies. League of Legends, not rewarding, problem solving, right? So there are all these different elements that we see in a lot of games, okay? And I want to give you some definitions that I've found. First, from the dictionary, right? An activity engaged in for diversion or amusement, right? And that seems like a fairly standard definition. I think a lot of people would agree that's their conception of a game. But do all games meet that definition? Right? Can you think of any games that maybe weren't made for enjoyment? What about games that were made to make you feel a little bit of pain or a little bit of awkwardness or maybe break your heart? Interesting. If you want a more academic definition, Tracy Fullerton, who's a professor of game design at USC, has a definition. A closed formal system that engages players in structured conflict and resolves its uncertainty in an unequal outcome. Okay, it is a formal system of mechanics that engages players, right? So you got engagement there in structured conflict. And now I'm wondering, maybe this includes, I was thinking about co-op. What about co-op? But co-op players against a game, maybe. And it resolves its uncertainty in an unequal outcome. This is a really interesting definition, though I'm not sure if this has much to say about draws and tie games. But it is a very interesting academic definition. And then my favorite, from Sid Meier, who is a Wolverine alumni. I remember having lunch with him in about 2012. This was before I played any of his games, so it was a very awkward lunch. It was pretty great. A game is a series of meaningful choices. Meaningful, interesting decisions. Okay? Sid Meier's definition. What is a game, right? Might be less important than the question of what makes a good game, right? In this course, we want to make games that are good, right? But actually, this isn't so great either. What on earth does good mean, right? I mean, good can mean many different things to other people. If you look at Nintendo's work, fun. Okay, if a game is fun, that means it's good, right? And if you look at Nintendo's productions, you really feel this. They focus so intently on fun because that's what they believe makes games good, okay? From happy, colorful worlds and great spontaneous mechanics and wonderfully memorable and very energetic characters, right? In fact, the Nintendo CEO, president of Nintendo of America, Reggie Fils-Aimé, said in a video, right? If it's not fun, why bother? What's the point if it's not fun? Fun is the point. In a GDC interview, I can't remember when. I think it was maybe like 2007 or something. Iwata. President Iwata, the president of Nintendo Global, said that games are meant to be only one thing. Fun for everyone, right? However, right, these games right here, who's heard of these games? Who's heard of this first game on the top, right? I know a lot of people would call this a good game. And I know a lot of people would call this not fun at all. In fact, maybe the opposite of fun, right? And yet it is extremely popular and very well known, and it sold very, very well. Okay? And the same, this one on the bottom might be a little bit more obscure. This is Heavy Rain on the bottom. A game that many people enjoyed and did very well commercially, but I think many would say is not exactly about fun all the time. This is a challenge, a scene in the game in which you have to find the best way of cutting your own finger off, okay, to appease a serial killer who has kidnapped your son. That doesn't sound like a particularly nice time to me. And what about poignant and painful games? Later in the course, we'll talk about a game called Mainichi, which was a game created by Maddie Bryce, who is a transsexual woman in San Francisco. She made the game because she had to explain to her friends some of the troubles that she runs into, the difficult situations she runs into, and the very hard decisions she has to make from day to day, right? In other words, a way of letting her friends walk a mile in her shoes. I think very few people would call this game fun, but I think many people would call it very poignant and very impactful, okay? So what makes a good game, okay? This might not be a very meaningful thing to actually ask, okay? Right? Not all these games are fun. Are all these games good? They are all very engaging, okay? People play these games and there's something about them that engages the player, right? Makes them memorable, makes them stick out and grab attention. So what makes a good game? Let's talk about what makes an engaging game in this course, okay? So Sid Meier, we'll go back to his quote, right? A game is a series of meaningful choices. Okay? A game is a series of meaningful choices. So when we think about the big game design topics in this course, here's what they're going to be, okay? 1, interesting, meaningful decisions. What are they? How can we get them into our own games and make them better, okay? What goes into creating an interesting decision? How do you do that? 2, player guidance. This is what we're going to talk about next time on Monday, right? Because player guidance is extremely important as P1 Gold is beginning. It's the idea that you might have the most interesting game in the world that has 1 billion interesting, deep decisions that have big consequence in them. However, if the player can't understand what's going on, or understand what they're supposed to do, or what their objectives are, or what the mechanics are, or what the controls mean, then they can't really make those decisions, and so all their value goes down the drain. Okay, that's what I'm talking about when it gets to player guidance. We'll talk about that one. Very fun lecture next time. We'll talk about Juice, which is an incredibly fun topic, and a topic that you will enjoy very much programming into your game. These are the things that make a game kind of pop and squirt and react to you in really responsive ways, right? It makes a game feel alive. We'll talk then about game feel toward the end of the class. Okay, how can you make sure that the game feels incredible to play? It's kind of related to Juice, all right? But today is all about interesting decisions. And when it comes to interesting decisions, today we're going to be talking about consequence. We'll be talking about surprise. And we'll be talking about long, medium, and short-term objectives and decisions, okay, to make them very satisfying. So what does it mean for a decision to be interesting and meaningful? Right? What does it mean? And I've got a question, chat. I've got a question for you, and I need your help, all right? Did you enjoy the following game, and more importantly, much more importantly, why? Why or why not? Okay, I'm going to show you the game. Ready? 30 seconds. Why did you enjoy this game, or why did you not? Did you enjoy this game, chat? Why or why not? That's cheating. That's cheating, Mimsy. No, it was boring. It was boring. No choices have any particular impact. Well, I mean, you can choose to make the risky jump. You can choose to go around the long way or find someone. There are choices in this game. No doubt. It's boring, yes, if you mean T1. No, boring, not rewarding. Yes, there's potential, even if it was underdeveloped. I made it a bit hard. Right? So, Typically, what people say is that while they enjoy making this game, they don't really enjoy playing it all that much. I'm going to remove my window here. So what I want to do is I want to have an activity chat. So I'm going to bring up some games, and you're going to either vote red or you're going to vote blue, okay? On the red side, we have fewer decisions, less impactful decisions, trivial ones, and boring decisions. On the right, we're going to have more decisions, impactful ones, and meaningful decisions, okay? So the first game, right, we're going to file it over here. This is at least the historical way that these votes tend to go. However, let's go for this game, okay? This is a game called Marble Madness, okay? And I'm actually going to throw in the URL because we're all going to play this game. Tales Arc. Okay, this is just for educational experience here. What I want you to do is I want you to go to this website, chat, and for the next 60 seconds, I want you to play one round of this game, Marble Madness. Okay, now we're going to talk about it. And I'll play it right here for those of you who don't want to get it going in your browser, okay? This game was made by Mark Cerny, who is the architect of the PlayStation. I believe he's Sony's lead engineer on the PlayStation. He also helped with Crash Bandicoot and a bunch of Sony's early projects. I think he also worked with Sega on Sonic, too. Okay, so we're going to insert a coin, and then click Player 1. Oh, come on. Hello. Let's play. Hello. Is it not? Okay, here we go. Push one player start. I think we have to push player 1. Do I have to insert a coin? There we go. Insert a coin, then player 1 start. Okay, here we go. Arrow keys. This is playing a little bit slowly in my browser. That's okay. Does this seem a little bit familiar to any of you? Maybe like something you recently created. Oh my gosh. Alright, oh, I'm being followed. Oh my gosh, who are these? Got these little leeches here who want to jump on me. Oh, I got eaten. Oh. Ooh, I'm stunned. There's fall damage in this game. Oh! Ah! Hey, alright, I made it to the second stage. Okay, that's all I'm gonna play. So you can play more if you wish, but we're running a little bit low on time. So Marble Madness, right? What do you think about this, chat? Like, how does it compare to Rollerball? It's Rollerball, but better. It reminds me of Rollerball, right? Monkey Ball, but less. More decisions, different obstacles, music, a learning curve. It also has other things to it too, right? So it has a timer, and it has a kind of health system where the faster you go, the more health you get back, as in time, right? Time is your health at the end of each stage, right? So it's kind of like, how far can you go? There's a scoring system, right? So there's time pressure. So every decision you make is more important because you need to make it kind of quickly. There's more consequence because when you, if you miss a jump, you lose time, which might end the game. There are more enemies. There's a rival ball. The black ball will actually fight you and will try and knock you off, right? You have to be careful about how far you jump down because you can actually be stunned. And so this is kind of like Rollerball, but it has a lot more stuff going on, a lot more things to consider, right? And so many people would probably say this is a game with more decisions, impactful ones, certainly more so than Rollerball. I think you'll find people wanting to play Marble Madness more than your average Rollerball game, okay? Let's talk about poker. Chat, what do you think about poker? So poker is an interesting game, right? It's a game of limited information, right? Where you have to care what you think your opponents have. And you might be able to guess what hand your opponents have and how powerful it is based on how they act. But you don't know for sure. You never know for sure, right? Lots of decisions. And you have to make these decisions without having perfect information. You have some information, but not perfect information, right? So it's ambiguous what your choice should be sometimes. Anyway, a lot of people, right, would say this is a very engaging game. In fact, there are worldwide championships in this game going on all the time, being broadcast on ESPN, gaining large audiences. People love this game. You'll find it in all sorts of casinos. And people love to watch this game and engage with it in many different ways. Okay, we'll put it over here. What about this game? Has anyone played a classic card game called War? Okay. War could not be any more different than poker, okay? War is a game where the entire game is decided after the shuffle completes. And I'm not joking. This is a game with no decisions in it. Here's how the game works. You have a pile right over here. Your opponent has a pile. And what you do is you lay down the top card on your pile at the same time. Whoever has the higher value card gets both of those cards. And then they just go into your pile, okay? And so right now, this draw would cause, okay, the queen beats the 7, so the 7 and the queen go to this player and go back into the deck. And you play until one player runs out of cards, and that's it, all right? And this is essentially the entire game. There are no choices to make at all. And this is not a very well-regarded game. This is something usually that children learn as one of their first card games, and then they never ever play again, and probably never think about again unless they're making fun of it like we are now, okay? We're going to put that over there. There's simply not a whole lot to think about. It is the world's slowest random number generator, okay? So I want to ask you about a game like Temple Run. This might be a more difficult question. Temple Run, right? The game where you have to quickly run down these pathways, right? Now, is this a game that has more decisions, more impactful decisions, or are they actually too simple, right? What do you think? I think a lot of people, if you just analyzed Temple Run at the surface level, you'd say, you know what? It doesn't have many interesting decisions. All you do is you just swipe left or right. Sometimes you swipe up or down, you know? And it's always pretty similar, right? You're just, hey, is there an obstacle in your way? You just do the thing that gets you past the obstacle. Like 4 decisions in the entire game, right? There are actually some more than that. But, however, one of the cool things about this is that even though the decisions are so simple, and there aren't that many of them, you have to make them extremely fast, right? Okay, gotta turn, okay, left, okay, up, okay, left, okay, up, right, okay, down, right, okay, get some gems, tilt, okay, up, right? They're all simple decisions, but they're still extremely engaging because you're asked to make them very fast, a test of your reflexes and your decision making, okay? If this game were moving much slower, it would lose all of its value because you can always make the right decision if you're given unlimited time in this kind of game, okay? So anyway, we'll file it over here. How about this game? The launch version of No Man's Sky. What do you think? What do you think, chat? So this is a game that was critically panned when it released because it promised in its hype and marketing to be a game that was full of exploration and choice and discovery, right? You could do anything. It's the everything game. You can go to any planet you want. You can find any species. Who knows what you'll find? You might find other human players, which was not true. You might find a settlement, right? And you might meet some aliens, and who knows what they'll say to you, right? A world full of choice and consequence. And it goes over here because that was the marketing and the reality didn't quite live up to it. Procedural generation gone a bit awry. Let's look at why, okay? This is a really great clip from Joseph Anderson, who's one of my favorite game essayists and analysts, and I would call researcher on YouTube. Let's take a look at No Man's Sky and the problem with it.
What do you do in No Man's Sky? I've been to hundreds of planets spread over more than 100 systems, so I can objectively answer this question with, you go to planets and hope they look pretty. If they do, you stay for a while and look around. If they don't, you leave and fly to the next one and hope it looks pretty. That's it. That's the game. The thing is, though, you might not realize that at first, because there are aliens to meet and speak to, there are resources to mine and hoard, you can craft some things, discover blueprints for tech upgrades, scan wildlife on planets, you can catalog and name discovered alien animals and plants yourself. But the more you play, the more you realize there isn't a point to any of this. Farming resources for crafting should lead to something, but it doesn't. You can save up money to buy a new ship, but aside from looks, they're all identical. The only difference between each one is the amount of inventory slots they provide, which clumps in with all of the other upgrades to result in this almost catch-22 statement. You find and collect things in No Man's Sky in order to make it easier for you to find and collect things in No Man's Sky. Exosuit upgrades, they make it so you can survive longer in harsh environments and move faster in order to collect things. What do you use those collected things on? To make the upgrades so you can survive longer and move faster. Multi-tool upgrades, well, they make it so your mining beam can be used more efficiently to suck up resource nodes, which you then use to make your mining beam be more efficient at sucking up resource nodes. Starship upgrades, well, you get the idea, and it may sound like I'm exaggerating, but I'm really, truly not. There are no big, interesting discoveries anywhere in the game. There are no cool events, no complicated ruins or randomly generated dungeons. There are alien settlements on planets, but they're all the same pre-made collection of buildings that have one alien in it. Never two, only one. They have some text-based challenge for you, usually a guessing game of choosing the right answer or resource to give them, and that's it. Every planet is essentially the same, with some slight variations that make it appear different at first. The only thing that can really stick out between them are the visuals, which is why I say that's the only thing there is to do. Unless you want to try to complete the endgame goal of reaching the center of the galaxy.
All right. So you get the idea, right? This game has a lot of stuff in it, but interesting decisions? Well, not really. There are a lot of little decisions to make, but they all lack consequence, which is something we'll talk about very soon, okay? So how to create interesting decisions, right? This is... Oh, and by the way, No Man's Sky, I say launch version here because the modern version of No Man's Sky is very well received. If you want a very interesting video on the history of this game, the Internet Historian YouTube channel has a fantastic and very amusing kind of history for this game. Okay, go check it out. How to create interesting decisions. This is one of the questions we really care about, an intimidating question, right? Because this is something that we really need to be able to do for our games in this course, okay, and beyond, all right? So how to create interesting decisions, right? And I'm going to go through this really fast, but I want to take 5 minutes of break, okay? And then we're going to come back and we're going to move very fast because we have a lot of stuff to cover, a lot of revamped material. So I'll see you in 5 minutes, chat, and I'll throw some music on. You can talk about how much you love No Man's Sky in the chat while you're at it. You can ask questions during this time too, if you'd like, okay? Hey, chat. What game is this from? Ooh, sounds like Super Monkey Ball. Correct company, but not correct series. Correct series, Sonic, but which game? Not Sonic 06, no. I believe that game had much more of an orchestral soundtrack and less of an electronic one. It's not Mania. Nope. It is... It is Sonic Heroes, which is sometimes referred to as Sonic Adventure 3. The Sonic series is renowned for its consistently incredible music. Even when some of the games had not been well received, the music is just routinely fantastic. Okay, that was perfect timing. Fantastic. Okay, so let's keep going, right? So we want to create engaging decisions, and we've seen a bunch of games that we just kind of categorized into ones that had more engaging decisions, games that engaged players, games that were generally liked and well received, and games that not so much, right? They weren't well received, they didn't engage players. And so how can we create interesting, engaging decisions in our games? Well, one of the first things we can do is add consequence. And if we have a decision in our game, we can think about the consequences of that decision, okay? So hold on. Forget about games for a second. I want you to think about the moments in your life that don't have consequence, okay? And different things in life that don't have consequence. One of those, and I must have been very angry about my internet service last night, because one of those was Comcast, right? So a monopoly situation in a market is when a single entity just dominates the market, right? To the point where they have no real serious competitors. And in that situation, there is no consequence for the company. The monopolist can do whatever it wants. It can just kind of survive indefinitely. Compete? Well, there's no one to compete with. Don't need to compete. Lower prices? Don't need to do that. There's no competition. No consequence for having high prices. No consequence for having poor service. And what's the point of innovation? We don't need to innovate, and there's no consequence for that in a Monopoly. Speaking of Monopoly, if you've ever played this game, right? Monopoly Money, a game where you are given fake money, right? And you lose it and you gain it. You know, how does it feel to lose your Monopoly money in this game? Does it really hurt? Does it just hurt your soul? I think most people, from what I've seen, playing the game and seeing people play it in Let's Plays and stuff, is most of the time they don't care. This game is not particularly engaging for a lot of people, and the money, right? Losing Monopoly money is not a big deal. It's fake, right? There's no consequence, and so this game tends to lose people after a while. Okay? Now, think about the last time you went to a casino. If you're old enough to do that, I'm pretty sure most of you are. Go to a casino and see your money in the form of these chips leave the table, right? Go down to zero. That hurts, all right? That hurts pretty bad, okay? The engagement is just totally different between casino games, which can be very engaging and addicting, sometimes in a very bad way, and Monopoly, which is not engaging at all. Okay? Think about, unfortunately, Congress, right? One of the interesting things you see if you go to C-SPAN is you'll often see people who are talking about a topic that they care about, who are advocating for something, talking about a bill coming up. However, and we get some good memes out of it too sometimes. However, the chairs, look at these chairs around them. This congressperson is talking to an empty room. Why? Because there's no there's no vote happening today, right? There's no vote happening, and so all of the other Congress people don't really have a big reason to be there. There's no consequence from them not being there, right? Not a lot of people watch C-SPAN. They won't really be held accountable for not being there, and so they're not, right? These are all kind of bad situations caused by a lack of consequence, okay? Have you ever been in a meeting, right? This photo, this stock image of a meeting from Pixabay, royalty-free photo, this might be the most engaged meeting I've ever seen in my life, okay? There are meetings that you will get into if in your career, if you haven't been in one already, for a club, for an org, for a class, a team meeting or something, where you wonder why you are there, right? The topic isn't very relevant to you, and so you're stuck there, and it's not very engaging, right? There's no consequence for visiting the meeting or not being at the meeting. So anyway, let's get back to games, though. This is one of the most famous stages in all of gaming, actually. Okay, I'm going to show it to you. Do you know what it's from, and do you know why it's engaging? You've seen it before. Okay, here it is. Right? You might recognize this crate and that fruit and say, hey, it's Crash Bandicoot, right? Hey, this is one of the most engaging stages in gaming. However, one person said it's Insanity Beach, right? It is not. Okay, however, if you look at this moment in the stage, it's very boring. You got some fruit, you got a crate, okay? This might be the most vanilla screenshot you've seen from this game, okay? What makes it engaging? Right now, this would not be engaging. Okay, the player, oh, there's a box. I go get the box. Okay. And that's a little bit fun, I guess, but it's not super engaging. It's just something you're going to do. It's a little bit ho-hum. You're going to do it, and then you're going to move on, right? This stage is a lot more engaging when we reveal more of it, okay? Crash, if you look at his face, he seems very engaged right now. And if we reveal the whole screenshot, we see why this stage is engaging. Oh, okay. All right. This stage, right, this moment, should you go for the box or should you continue in a straight line, is very engaging. And the reason is this boulder, okay? Let's talk a little bit about resource scarcity, okay? As you know from geometry, right, you can run in a straight line. You run at the same speed that this boulder chases you. If you run in a straight line, the boulder will not gain on you at all, okay? Which is good news. However, if you see a box over here, you notice, oh, I have to run to it. But wait a second. From geometry, you know that if you kind of head out this way, right, you are losing distance in this direction, right? You are sacrificing some of your speed in this direction to move this way toward the box, which means that every moment you spend walking this way is a moment the boulder is chasing you, is actually gaining on you. So suddenly the question of, oh, do I have time to like swing out to the right, to Crash's right, and get this box? Well, if this boulder were not there, the answer would of course be yes. It wouldn't even be a decision at all. You just do it. It's obvious, right? It's trivial. However, with this boulder behind you, suddenly something as simple as should I pivot like 45 degrees to get the box is suddenly a life or death decision. Okay? Suddenly it's very interesting in the moment. Resource scarcity, when limits make the mundane meaningful. Okay? Here's what I mean. Limited time in a game can be suddenly make, a trivial decision very, very meaningful and impactful and consequential, right? Limiting your chances, right? You've got one chance to get past, to make this choice, to grab the box or to skip it, okay? And if you mess up this decision too many times, you'll actually have to restart the entire level, okay? And no takebacks, right? Think of a game like Mass Effect, where you make a decision in the game and it might have, you can't go backward. Sometimes you can save scum. Think about Dark Souls, Demon Souls, Bloodborne, right? That game is constantly saving. You can't just reload the previous save, right? So everything you do in that game really matters. There are no takebacks, right? Here's another example from Crash. This is a very, very simple jump. Very straightforward. Jump on the plant, jump on the next platform. Until you realize that this is going to clamp, right? Every once in a while. So suddenly, there's a timing element to it. Your time is limited, and so this platforming challenge is much more engaging. You have to think about, okay, when do I want to go? Should I stay back? Should I take a different route if I can? It's safer. How many lives do I have? How much risk can I afford, right? Here's another jump from that very level, okay? This jump would be super easy. This is actually a switch. If you jump on this box, you unlock a door later on in the level, okay? Or you unlock a new area. This would be the easiest decision in the world to make if Crash could swim. But Crash cannot swim, right? If this jump might be simple, but because of risk added, right? And because of limited chances to make this jump, you might want to hedge, right? If you're on your last life, you probably do not want to take this risk, okay? Because you're going to die if you miss this jump. But you have to size up whether you think the rewards further on might be worth it. Think about a game like Dead Rising, a game that is kind of a vanilla beat-em-up with zombies in a mall, right? This game loses a lot of its steam if you don't recognize that you only have 48 hours. You're a journalist. You've got 48 hours of in-game time to solve the case, to save as many people as you can, right? If you had infinite time, well, it might just not be as meaningful. When you're limited on your time, certain decisions become impactful. Like, okay, which way should I go through the mall, right? With all the shortcuts I know, which one is going to be best to get to my destination in the least amount of time, right? Where are the supplies that I can grab quickly so that I can get to the next mission before it ends and I run out of time, right? Suddenly, you have to care about where the shortcuts are. You have to care about the layout of the mall, and you have to care about where all of your supplies are. Think about Resident Evil, right? If you've played this series, and I highly recommend it, it is such a tightly designed series. This is a game that is not a power trip. Okay, this is a series that is built entirely around depriving you of the things that you need and want, right? Putting limits on how much ammo you can find, right? How much damage you can take. This game is famous for limiting the amount of saves you can make. In this game, and we'll talk about it later, there's an item called an ink ribbon, and you can only save at typewriters, Chicago-style typewriters. And if you do not have an ink ribbon, you cannot save your game. This was done to increase the horror, to increase the player's engagement, because there's nothing less scary about a game than the fact that you can save infinitely. Okay, make a tiny bit of progress, go back and save. Make a tiny bit more progress, you come back and save. Suddenly, there's no consequence to your gameplay. But if you limit the number of saves that you can make as a player, suddenly the horror returns. There's nothing scarier than having 30 minutes of progress at risk because there's a zombie in your way and you couldn't make a save. because you're out of ink ribbons. You can find more as you explore the game. And so this is how this series enforces pacing that works very well with horror. Okay, this might sound extremely cruel to limit the amount of saves, right? But in reality, losing 30 minutes of time, if you need to replay that 30-minute section, it won't be 30 minutes. It'll be like 5 or 6 because you know what to do, right? So this is a situation where the punishment, the consequence, feels much nastier than it actually is in practice. And that's perfect for horror. Anyway, I want to talk to you about risk too, right? They say variety is the spice of life. I disagree. I think it's risk, okay? Doing things that could go wrong but could give you a big reward, okay? Here's a few things to think about in your game designs, in your decision making. Is your game design brute forcible? Is your decision brute forcible? I'll tell you what that means in a second. I'll give you an example. And can something of value be lost in the current situation or in the current decision? Okay, who's played this game? Right, Final Fantasy VII, fantastic game, but, well, there's a reason they call parts of these games the grind, right? They call it grinding when you go in when you go in and you have to level up and you fight a lot of enemies and the fights are all the same and they're kind of boring, right? So in an RPG like this, what happens is you play through the game and maybe you hit a boss. You hit a boss character that's really, really hard. And games like this always give you a way out. You can always go and you can just fight low-level enemies. Enemies that are very easy, like Chocobo and some of these plant things. You're at no risk of dying, really. And it doesn't really matter how you fight these enemies. They're going to go down. You can attack them. You can use a magic spell. You can use a summon. It doesn't matter what your decision is. It's all going to work. And unfortunately, if your decisions all work, if they don't matter, then they're not going to be engaging, okay? It's no surprise that people complain about the grindiness of RPGs, especially classic RPGs. And in part, it's because when you're grinding, you're really not thinking very hard, right? You're not being surprised or challenged. So anyway, roguelikes tend to get past this problem. You might have noticed that roguelikes are extremely popular these days. And it's their mix of random, procedurally generated challenges and areas and enemies, and permadeath, right? Where the wrong decision can end the game and your character's life forever, that really kind of take you out. You're never grinding in a roguelike, or at least very rarely. Every decision matters. Every enemy could be your last, okay? And every decision, right, can be surprising because it's always done in a new context, a new area, a new set of enemies, new combinations, right, with new status effects, right? The best roguelikes really give you a new experience all the time. Anyway, so to create engaging decisions, we can add consequence to our games. And you got to think about how you can do that in P1. However, there's another thing that we want, right? What else can we add to get interesting, engaging decisions? Well, we can add surprise, okay? And what I would like to do is I would like to do a little experiment I don't think we've actually done before in this class. I don't think we've ever done this before in this class, okay? Okay, all the students who are watching, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on some nice music, and I want you to just relax. Sit back in your chair. We're going to breathe a little bit together, and then we are going to ask a couple questions. We're going to take you back to a fantastic memory, okay? So let me throw on some music. Sit back in your chair. Relax, okay? Let's get some music going. Turn your audio up, put your headphones on, sit back in your chair, close your eyes, and think about nothing, okay? This is your nap time. Okay, class, together, right? Breathe in on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in, hold it, and breathe out. Okay. What I want you to do is close your eyes, right? close your eyes. And then, on the count of 3, what I want you to do is I want you to remember a moment, okay? Remember the feeling of a moment. I want you to remember your first day of class. Think back to the first day of 494. What do you remember feeling? I want you next to think about your first day on campus, your very first day at the University of Michigan. Next, I want you to think about the feeling, if you are an international student, of the first day in the US. How did you feel as you left the airport? And finally, I want you to go back. Think about the biggest city that you've ever set foot in. I want you to think back to your first day in that big new city. How did it feel? Can you remember the feelings you had? Okay, class, wake back up, wake back up. Is everyone awake? Everyone rested? All right. So, I want you to remember, in chat, I want you to tell me, right, that first day on campus, that first day in the US for the first time, the first day of class, what did you feel? How did it feel like? Was it a mixture of some feelings, chat? I want you to tell me. I want you to tell me while I get my presentation back up. There we are. Get back to lecture 5. Anxiety and excitement, right? A little bit of nervousness, all right, some excitement and nervousness, right? I'm chilling with Naps de Bloek, right? Wonder and a bit of excitement, right? It's an awesome, awesome moment if you think about it. If you really think about those moments, right? First day in a new city. I wonder why my caption's back. First day in a new city, right? First day in a new country, right? First day in a new class. That feeling, it just keeps coming back, right? When you're doing something new and bold and exciting, right? Let me tell you about what I thought back to, okay? My very first day in New York City, okay? I kind of grew up in the suburbs of southeastern Michigan, very boring. My largest city I went to for a long time was Clarkston, Michigan, a very small village. And Ann Arbor, when I first got to it for the University of Michigan, my education, it was the biggest city that I've ever been to. It was enormous, and I couldn't believe it. Years later, I would go to New York City for the first time, come in on the train, and my goodness, it was so huge. Wow, look at this. Oh, everything is so gold and interesting and beautiful. There are people everywhere, people of all types and kinds. The sky is painted on the ceiling, right? It's just ridiculous. And then you walk out and you're like, oh my gosh, right? You can believe it. Your eyes get this big, right? Because there are people everywhere and there are buildings everywhere. And what's that over there? And wow, look at that. A horse just went by. What are they doing? And oh my gosh, there's another train. And wow, there's a dog over there. And oh my gosh, am I going the right way? Do I fit in? Okay, do I seem like too much of a tourist? Wait a second, where am I supposed to be going? I can't read the map. There's so much stuff going on, right? It's just ridiculous. It's exciting, but it's also very nerve-wracking, okay? And you feel a bit like this. Right? I love this photo. You can see that there's some happiness and excitement here, but there's also like, oh God, what's going on? What am I going to do? And so there's decisions galore. If you really think about those moments, whether it be like you're in a new city or you're in a new country or you're in a new class, there are decisions to make everywhere, right? Where am I? Turn left or right? Who are all these people? Should I be greeting them? Am I out of place? Where's the bathroom, right? You know, if you're in a class, like, okay, what are my assignments? Okay, what's the syllabus like? Okay, should I really be in this course? Should I be taking another course? Okay, who's next to me? Okay, who are my friends in this course for the projects, right? There are always interesting decisions on your first day of anything, okay? And important decisions too. This is engaging stuff. And you react, you're engaged, right? unusual decisions. These are very unique and new decisions for you. And that's part of it, right? Whether you're in a new city or a new class, or you're playing a game like Alien Isolation, a new game with new bold mechanics, right? However, in all of these situations, while you might be making these interesting decisions, over time they all start to degrade. And you go from being super like, wow, I'm super engaged and I got to make these decisions right, to, oh, okay, well, I'll just do it, right? After a while, you just show up to class and you do your best. It's not super engaging. You're not super anxious or excited about it anymore. And yet you are making interesting, engaging decisions, but they just don't engage you like they used to. Okay? That's the thing you need to notice, right? Because over time, even the most engaging of decisions degrade with the repetition, right? As you make a decision, no matter how interesting it is at first, you start to understand it over time, right? You understand the outcomes of it, you understand the intricacies, how to make the decision well, right? How to make the decision in different settings, right? Because you start to learn the settings. And even the elements of risk and randomness start to become quantified for you, right? You start to really understand, okay, this decision comes with this risk, okay, this can be the outcome, I should make this decision. It's all so mundane, right? Even though you created this engaging stuff is going on, you just don't really engage with it like you once did, okay? It's that grind, right? There's a reason they call it the grind. These battles might be super exciting when a new mechanic gets released and you're experimenting, but after a while, you know what the decisions are. While they were once engaging, repetition has just degraded them, right? The experience is no longer what it once was. I want to bring something up to you, okay? Certain games and certain genres and approaches tend to get away from this. Spelunky, FTL, Slay the Spire. These games have a longevity to them. The decisions that are in these games have a longevity that other games just tend to not always have, okay? And I think I'll move my caption, oh my gosh, what? I moved the wrong thing. Let's see if I can move my caption box up here. Seems like a good place. And right, so the roguelike genre is really, really great at giving you repetitive decisions, but always giving them in an unpredictable and interesting context, okay? You're making the same decisions over and over and over, but the contexts are always very different. And so that keeps them engaging over time much better than many other games that are much more kind of stable and predictable in their structure. If you go to Twitch right now, you'll notice something, okay? You'll notice something, right? They are all multiplayer. All multiplayer. The top 30 are multiplayer. Okay? And that is no coincidence. That is no accident. Okay? Humans are possible to reason about. They have certain patterns, but they are absolutely impossible to fully understand and predict, right? We're engineers, right? Humans can be a little bit difficult for us to understand sometimes. That is certainly the stereotype anyway. So, right, I'm playing Fall Guys. I've been playing that a good bit lately, right? And I have played this stage a billion times before. I played this stage a ton. However, what I have not run into are these people deciding to do weird things. Okay, I played the stage like 5 times. I haven't seen these people at the end trying to grief me, doing this weird thing where they stop and they stop in front of the finish line and they try and grab you before you can get to the end and throw you off, right? That is weird. That is unexpected, right? And so suddenly this stage, this experience is given new life, because I don't know what the humans in it are going to do. There's this element of unpredictability that keeps these decisions very interesting and keeps them from getting repetitive, right? They stay engaging, right? So this person's here and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, wait, what is this about, right? And you start to learn and study and figure out the human behavior a little bit more. Anyway, all of the top 30 games I think 30th place last night was Legend of Zelda Oracle of Ages, the first like absolutely single player game to make the list. And it was only at 5.9K, right? So that's just incredible. There's a reason multiplayer is dominant right now when it comes to player counts and revenue, right? Every AAA game has a multiplayer component these days, and this would be the reason why, okay? If you think about a game like Undertale, which we just saw, right? This is a game that has a lot of stuff you've done before. It has bullet hell gameplay, right? Space shooter gameplay. It has dating sim gameplay. It has platforming gameplay. It has quiz shows, right? All of these have been done before. However, they've never been done in exactly this manner, right? They've never been done in exactly this circumstance, okay? And so it's still very surprising. The structure of this game is extremely innovative. The things that are coming, you've done before, but these decisions come at unexpected moments, and they kind of apply themselves in very unexpected ways, okay? What we're going to do now is we're going to play a game, all of us, called Frog Fractions. This is a game that is online, and this is a game that is all about educating you on fractions, right? Which is super cool, and that's really all there is to it, right? And it's got some fun gameplay, so we're going to go ahead and play it, all of us. All of us, we have 7 minutes to play this game, okay? 7 minutes to play this game. I just posted the link in the chat. And so let's give it a run, okay? Gonna play us some Frog Fractions. I've heard this is a very good educational game. It can teach us a lot. Play it along with me, chat. Okay, chat. So this is the game. So we are this frog, and we learn about fractions by taking down these bugs, right? Frogs and bugs have a lot to do with each other, and there's fruit out here too. And we need to defend the fruit, right? The loop is you defend the fruit as well as you can, and this fruit becomes a currency. If you can defend the fruit, you get it as currency, and you can buy upgrades. So you got 2 or 3 out of 5, 2 out of 5, right? So your score is represented in the fractions here, right? And so you can buy upgrades. So now I'm on a turtle, so I can grab the fruit as they fall. Okay. So we're going along here. We're gonna complete a stage. And you know what? Actually, turtles can swim, right? I can go back. So what if I go down? I can go left, I can go right. That's pretty normal, but what if I try and go down? Can I, Oh, all those fruit that were falling, it seems, are on the bottom of the ocean. And you know what? I'm on a turtle and I'm a frog, so of course I can go underwater, right? I got 1 billion currency. I got 1 billion fruit. Wow, look at that. Right? Okay. So look at this. Complete a round. I'm gonna buy some targeting. I'm gonna buy some static tongue cling, I think, because what do I need? Static cling tongue. Let's buy a static cling tongue. I believe this will make it easier for me to get more of the flies. Okay. So you know, I didn't think that I would have the ability to weaponize my tongue in this game, but it does make a certain kind of sense, right? The frog's main utility is the tongue, and we've got a big amount of things to defend against. Let's buy a dragon, okay? So we've got our dragon here. So now I can actually fly, right? This makes sense because I can fly, but maybe I wasn't expecting to have this decision. Oh, and since I can fly, it now makes sense that I'm in a bullet hell and I can dodge projectiles here. I'm learning a lot, personally. Okay, so what else? How about a warp drive? What do warp drives do? I am now in a space shooter because I bought a warp drive. That makes sense. I'll be honest with you, as unexpected as this is, the decision to buy a warp drive, what else do warp drives do? Take you to space, right? Ooh, indignity. Ouch. Okay, so there's Bug Mars. So we're going to Bug Mars. Okay, I have been arrested for invading a planet's airspace and attacking their equipment. And now I'm in a court scene here, and I'm playing a graphic novel. Very interesting. So, yeah, that might have been a lot to take in, team. But, so, something that's really fun about this game, right, is that you have quite a few decisions to make. And as you saw, depending on what you buy, the game changes quite a bit. There are consequences to your choices. One of the great things about this game is that your choices are not only meaningful and impactful and consequential, changing the gameplay and how it progresses, but it also is very surprising, right? This is a game where, you know, you might say, oh, okay, I wouldn't have thought you could buy a turtle, but that's impactful, so you buy a turtle. And then you think, oh, I can go underwater. Well, that actually makes a lot of sense, but it's not very expected, right? Most games would only have one screen, and most games would not give you infinite apples and fruit, right? But wait a second, it makes perfect sense because apples have been falling from the tree the entire game, right? So you go down, you grab them all from the ocean floor. That makes sense. It's a surprising decision. It's a very impactful one, too. And then, right, it might seem a bit random that you can buy a dragon, but once you have bought a dragon, it works exactly like you would expect. You can fly around. Once you buy a warp drive, which is another unexpected decision you can make, it works exactly like you'd expect. You start going into the sky, right? And once you're in the sky, right, the bugs start to attack you. You go to their home world because, of course, the bugs have always been your enemy in this game. You go to the home world, you trash one of their big pieces of equipment, and they arrest you, right? It's surprising. All of this is very surprising, but in a way, it all has an underlying logic. It makes some sense in a way, right? It seems maybe a little bit random, but not so much. It's more surprising than it is random, okay? And this game is so incredible in how it plays with your expectations in ways that don't feel random. They still make some amount of sense. Like, of course, you're in front of a judge, right? You've just been arrested because you were doing bad things to the bugs in their home planet. Okay, and it continues to escalate in surprising but somewhat reasonable ways from there. I encourage you to keep playing this game, okay, because it is truly a classic. So in your game designs, aim for things that are unexpected, but also make a certain amount of sense, right? And at least work in the game world. So if you think to the Legend of Zelda motorbike example I showed you, right? It might be really unexpected to have a motorbike in a dungeon, right, in the Legend of Zelda universe. But as unexpected as this is, it makes a certain sense when you use it, right? The motorbike would be perfect for getting over the gaps that you find in dungeons. It would be perfect for the enemies that you run into, right? Being able to take them down quickly, for escaping traps. So while motorbikes may not exist in the Legend of Zelda universe very much, their inclusion actually makes more sense than you might realize. It's certainly a very interesting and surprising choice. That's what makes it so satisfying. Okay? So to create engaging decisions, we can make them consequential, we can make them surprising, right? Which makes them novel and unpredictable, right? Keeps them from getting repetitive. But we can also do a third thing. We can make them very long-term as well as short-term, okay? Decisions that are made over the course of long periods of time. Okay, who's played Civ? Civilization. Okay, who's played the Civ series? I'll reiterate, Sid Meier is a Wolverine alum, a fantastic and impactful visionary, one of the great legendary game designers of all time, and a fantastic and very great and generous human being, too, I'll add. Very, very kind man. He said this in an interview, right? One of the reasons that Civ is so addicting, right? It's that one more turn dilemma, right? Where you just got to play one more turn of Civ. And then you have to play another turn. And pretty soon, you started this game at 5 p.m. and it's 3 a.m. You've played for 12, you played for like a ton of hours. It's like nothing, right? Absolutely nothing. You're almost not playing in the moment, Meier said. You're playing in the future. And that future is just one more turn ahead, right? In other words, you're playing this current turn, but you're also playing 10 turns out, and you're also playing 50 turns out, the long term. They're decisions you're making over all these time spans, okay? So on any given turn of Civ, if you think about it, if you've played the game, you can move an army to block an invader, right? You can move your settler to that perfect city location before an opponent gets there first. You can participate in a battle. You can monitor some or block some enemy scouts. You can explore a nearby resources tile. Maybe you don't know the full map yet. You can declare war. You can declare peace. Make a trade for luxury goods. You can do all of this on a single turn, and it's all very impactful, okay? But in the medium turn, 10 turns out, like you can be investing in unit production. You might order a unit, but it's not going to be here for 10 turns, so you have to be thinking ahead of time. Same thing with building production. That will make your civs more resourceful and more efficient. What about technology, right? Give you that leg up in terms of technology on other civs. You can find other civs. That can take a while to find all of your opponents in any given game. You can make deals. You can start to think about what they're after. You can secure a national wonder. That usually takes a few turns, but gives you a boost into the long term for your civ. You can size up your neighbors. Are they going to be allies? Are they going to be threats? Are they going to be more powerful than you? Are they going to steal your resources and push you out of the game? You have to balance your population growth with your happiness. So import luxury goods, right? Long term, you need to be exploring and specializing in the tech tree. You need to decide whether you want to aim for a cultural domination or military or science victory, right? You need to start cutting off competing civs and start thinking about who is your biggest real threat in the game still. If you defeat a civ or if a civ falls or leaves the game, you need to figure out, you need to do a rush for that civ and try and take its resources, right? Secure some fundamental geopolitical long-term advantages, right? That will make a difference in the long term, right? So you're constantly thinking about the short, medium, and long term, right? And as a result, this addicting, extremely engaging quality of the game series has propelled it to heights, right? Civ is one of the great series in video games, consistently excellent and consistently catering to fans worldwide, right? But Civ, modern games aren't the only ones doing this, right? Even as back as far as Mario Bros. 3, an NES, 1980s game, there were presence of short-term, medium-term, and long-term decisions, right? So look at this, right? In these games, you're probably most familiar with the short-term decisions, right? And so you've got a Goomba here. You got a fireball coming at you. You got to make a quick dodge. What's your quick decision, right? The games were very good at that, but they also had medium-term decisions, right? Look at this, right? You've got a score to be managing, okay? You've got a timer to be thinking about. Well, yes, you can make these short-term decisions. You can explore around the stage, but you have to be mindful of the clock because in a few minutes you're going to be knocked out unless you get to the end of the stage. What about your lives, right? What about your power-ups? You have player status that builds up over time, collecting power-ups, gaining more lives, losing them, hitting checkpoints, right? Can I get to my next world checkpoint before I run out of lives so that I have a permanent checkpoint midway through the game, right? A guaranteed progress through the game. Medium-term thinking, right? And then long-term, can you make it to the castle, right? Can you make it to the castle, get past the guards? Where are the guards? Where can you collect some power-ups that will help you at the boss fight in the castle, right? So they can beat the castle, get the checkpoint, the permanent checkpoint, and make some definitive progress in the game, right? So, and that's why these games are so darn exciting, right? It's not just about the moment to moment. It's about the strategy, right? It's not just about the tactics. It's about your strategy in the overall war trying to complete this game, okay? So short term, medium term, long term, the best games from ye olden days had that too. Let's look at Zelda, right? We'll talk about this game more on Wednesday. But Zelda, even when it opens up, it shows you long-term objectives. Look at that beautiful mountain, that beautiful castle in the background. You can't get to it now, but in the future, you're going to remember it's there, and you'll eventually be close enough to go explore it. What about medium-term objectives? We got this beautiful forest not too far away. Is that a ruin I see? Looks like there's some structures in there. I wonder if they have any treasure, right? And then in the early game, you turn to the right and you see very short-term objectives too. So Nintendo, in their level design, really went a long way into giving you short-term decisions, medium-term decisions, and long-term ones too, right? Your immediate goal might be to head to that tower, but you're still going to be learning the lay of the land and trying to get down to those ruins and thinking about routing your way vaguely toward Death Mountain so you can explore the cool volcano, right? Anyway, what about Diablo? RPGs have this in spades. Diablo, right? A game that is all about fighting kind of short-term battles, tons of them, with this long-term goal of beefing up your stats and armor over time, right? And it's extremely addicting and satisfying as a result. Just a fantastic game. So to create engaging decisions, right, we want consequence, we want surprise, and we also want them to be long-term, medium-term, and short-term. We want very temporal decisions, right? Decisions that span the timeline of our experience with this game, right? So anyway, add consequence, surprise, and long and short-term decisions too, okay? Here are the three things you can do. You can even do this on P1. Long-term decisions, for P1 long-term, might mean from one end of the dungeon to the other, right? Your status. Can you gain any status? Or buffs or something, right? That might be something to add, but you don't need to worry about long-term decisions too much for the P1, right? I'll come back to this example. Oh, did I not post it? Here we go. This example from that we showed earlier, right? That Nigel Bale and Jennifer Daly. Oh, the audio in this is not very good. So let's. Oh, I'm being blocked here. Go away. I need to get rid of the audio. Come on. Damn it! Oh, sorry. Darn it. The enthusiasm shining through. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the audio right here. There you go. You shouldn't be able to hear that. Good. So if you look at this game, right, it has all of these things. It has consequence, right? So your usage of the motorbike matters. You either can get past these lava pits or you can't. You can use the motorbike to get out of battles. You can use it to dodge traps. It matters. Consequence to the motorbike. It's also surprising, right? This motorbike is something you wouldn't expect to find in The Legend of Zelda, but actually makes perfect sense when it's in this context of the dungeon, right? It also is a very long-term, it has a little bit of long-term thing, right? So this mechanic builds up its power the longer you use it. Right? So it's not just about, can I weave around an enemy here? Can I make a small jump here? It's also about, how can I keep my speed up long term? And long term, I mean like 10 seconds, so that I can get max speed and jump a long gap instead of just a one tile gap, right? So this is a fantastic example. I keep coming back to it because it's so impressive. It does all these things very, very well. Okay, I'm not sure why my cursor is a dot right now, but it's kind of neat. Anyway, so you can leave right now if you want to. However, I'm going to finish up a few more things, right? I want to talk to you about game design issues. If you do leave, feel fine to do that. Come back and watch the final 10 minutes of this lecture, okay? Because we're going to go over some common game design issues that you do need to avoid in your P1 Gold and all of your projects here in EECS 494, okay? So, disrespecting a player's time. You can't do that, okay? Don't waste your players' time. You want them, ideally, to be doing engaging and meaningful things, and ideally new things, non-repetitive things, as often as possible. This is a screenshot from Halo. Any Halo fans in chat? This is a particular level in the original Halo game called Library, and it is a stage in which, I haven't played it myself, but I've watched it. You fight one type of enemy, essentially, through the entire stage, the Flood. And there's some different variants of the Flood, but you fight this entire enemy essentially through the entire stage. And you will go to one end of the stage, and then you're immediately told to go back, right? So you explore the stage in one direction, and then you're told to go back, and I believe very little changes when you do that, right? So there are many people who have called this stage kind of padding, right? So it's a stage where not a lot of new stuff happens. It's very repetitive. It's kind of long, and it's not very fun to play, right? You go to one place, and then you just walk back. You fight the same enemy the entire time. And so players did not respond well to that. And we have to put this in context, right? Budgets are a thing. Time constraints are very real, as you all know in this course. So a certain amount of repetitiveness is going to happen no matter what. But in general, you just want to do your best to respect the player's time and make sure that every moment they spend with the game is engaging in some way, okay? Another thing that you want to avoid is too much text and explanation, okay? Many people come to playing games it's recreation for them. And relying too much on text and more importantly, too much on tutorial can really make it feel like they're not playing a game, they're in a class, right? They're in a class that's just throwing PowerPoints at them with tons of text everywhere, and it's very boring and dry, right? So you want to be careful. The best games I've found, the most elegant games, use very little text and very little tutorial, very little obvious tutorial. They find ways to teach the player very elegantly using things such as level design, lighting, environmental cues, and art, and a slow and steady and fair progression of challenge and experimentation. Okay? We'll talk all about this on Monday because it's one of the most important topics you can possibly learn in this course. Because it's also a topic, right? Teaching people without resorting to dryness and text, right? Is something that you can apply to presentations, to experience creation, so working on a theme park, working on any sort of product, right? And working on things like courses too. So it's not just about game dev. This kind of stuff, these principles can be applied anywhere. That's actually something we really try for in this class. Unity is a proprietary system. I want you to imagine a future tomorrow where Unity disappears. The company goes bankrupt, or you need to move away from it because they become a public company and they need to start making lots of revenue, and so they charge you a bunch of money, so you got to leave now, right? Can't afford it. By the way, that might be coming. Unity is going public, I believe, in the next few months. If Unity disappeared tomorrow, what skills and knowledge and techniques would you still have available to you? Okay? We want to give you a lot of techniques that you can use in other engines, in engines you build yourself one day, right? And so we'll be this game design information, the design pattern stuff, Singleton, Observer, PubSub we'll talk about later, and player guidance, which we'll talk about Wednesday, is all a part of this. But to stop that tangent, right, you don't want to just directly explain stuff, right? Players really love the discovery process. They love the aha moment when they figure it out. So don't deprive them of that. Challenge yourself. Can you teach the player things, like in the P1 examples we saw a few lectures ago, without resorting to text? Okay? The answer is yes, you can do it. And my only question is, can you find out how? We'll help you with that next lecture. It's so much fun. You're going to love it. Anyway, oh my gosh, I can't get to this. Why does this come up? Does anyone know why this comes up? Can I get this to go away? Can I get this to go away, please? I don't know. Hold on. I'm going to exit the lecture here because I can get to it, that link, in other places. That is, I wish Google's UX, if anyone works at Google is watching this, your UX team needs to figure that one out. Okay, this is a game called Mickey's Dangerous Chase. It was my first ever Game Boy Color game back in the day. It was a very, very hard game. It was a game with limited resources. I was engaged by it a lot. It does have finite lives. That's going to be important in a sec. And then you have to go start over. And this moment in particular is very interesting. So this is a stage. It's the second to last stage in the entire game, and you have to climb up a building really fast because the screen is actually going up, and you have to stay inside the screen, otherwise you die. And you enter this part. You have to jump up on these little platforms. Okay, look at this screenshot, everyone. Look at this screenshot. If you go left, you die. If you go right, you live. And so this decision of do I go left or right, it's very consequential, but the player has no information with which to make it. Okay? Let's watch this, because we're going to watch in just a sec a player unfortunately die here. Okay? You're going to see just how unfair this really is. So this player, I believe, speaks German and gets to this part and is not very happy with what happens. I think maybe this person curses. I'm not sure. Okay, so you're jumping up. And, it's a very, very hard stage. Look at that pot. Look at that. Did you see that pot? Did you see that pot? There was no warning at all, right? The player had a decision to make there. Do you dodge the pot, or do you keep going and tank the hit? However, the player had no information to make that decision. And so essentially that decision didn't exist. It was just an unfair little hit. Right? The game assumed the player would be telepathic and know about that. Oop. Okay, that's not the unfair jump. That's just a very hard jump. Okay. So we're climbing up, and hopefully the player will know to dodge that pot this time. Yep. Okay. So memorization, usually it's not something you want to do. Memorization in games is okay, there we go. Look at that. The player decided to go left instead of right. The player decided to go left. This is literally an impossible jump. And by the time you get to this platform, you discover, you can't go back. You can't go back at all. You are guaranteed to die if you go left at that fork. Dead, right? Dead, right? And the player's almost out of lives. So the player's going to be very unhappy if they end up dying. I think this player's using save states. But imagine that the player's on their last life. They're on the second to last level, and they just happen to go left. No fault of their own, no information suggesting that left is doomsday. They go left, and then they're presented with, oh, sorry, you die. What rage! Absolute rage, right? A very, very disappointing decision the level designers made, because this game is otherwise just fantastic. From incredible music to incredible level design, that is one of the dark moments in this game's level design. So anyway, do not assume that your players are telepathic. You can punish your players, but only if they had the information to make a decision and they made the wrong one. You must give your players some information to make a decision with. You cannot punish them for something they could not have guessed, okay? They'll be very frustrated with you. They will say, this game's unfair. They will go online, they will review it poorly, and then you're doomed as a company. You go out of business, and then your career as a game dev is over, okay? So anyway, be very careful about this. Do not assume your players are telepathic. You must give them some warning, however small, right? You must teach them, right? However small amount of teaching before you expect them to make hard decisions, all right? Your players are not telepathic. And the final one is allowing soft locks, okay? A soft lock is often an issue with the game's design, not necessarily an issue with technical issues with the game, right? So here's an example in Super Mario Bros. The Thousand Year Door, Paper Mario, Thousand Year Door, where the designers didn't think you could do something, but it ended up that you could do something, and it broke the game for you. Let's take a look. Yeah, Thousand Year Door can soft lock in several places. Uh-oh. Come on, YouTube. It's very laggy right now. Oh, come on, YouTube. Final part of lecture right here. This is it. This is the final part of lecture. And then we're essentially done. Wow, this is very disappointing right now. Okay, let's try again. Let's try again, and I want to load it up again. Maybe it would work a little bit better if it was in Chrome. Okay, so I'm going to click the play button. Here we go. Oh, you can't hear. You can't hear. Okay, hold on. You can't hear anything.
At the very beginning of the story, Mario arrives at the Rogueport Harbor and quickly runs into trouble with the X-Nauts. After Lord Crump is defeated and he calls on his henchmen, the earliest softlock in the game can be performed. If Mario jumps into water, a piranha will deal 1 damage and respawns us at a nearby point. In this room, Mario is expected to touch the dock before falling underwater, which updates his spawn position. In the event we jump around and bypass the dock altogether, Mario is relocated to the default edge of the harbor. The thing is, all the X-Nauts blocking Mario's path function as though they are nearby, since the developers extended their hitbox along the negative Z-axis. No matter what you try to do, Mario ends up permanently stuck, not even 5 minutes into a playthrough.
So, since you've all gotten some stuff done in Unity, you could probably tell what the problem is here, right? There's a block, there's a wall right here that was spawned in that's meant to push Mario out. It's like a trigger, right? A box collider with a trigger on it. And unfortunately, what the designers did was they made it extend super far on the Z-axis, even outside of where the X-Nauts are. And as a result of this, if you can get back to this point, you're stuck forever, and the respawning, the water respawn mechanic causes you to be able to get back there if you play it just right. So anyway, you need to bug test your game, and sometimes it's not an obvious like technical issue like a freeze or a glitch. Sometimes it's more of a design issue, sometimes more of a hybrid technical / design issue that can cause your game to get stuck. If the graders get stuck at the end of your game and they're trying to grade it, they have to play through your entire game again just to see the last part of stuff. That does not put them in a good mood, okay? And that is not going to be good for your grade. So please avoid soft locks. Game-breaking issues, this is referred to as a game-breaking issue. They must be eliminated from your game. Otherwise, they destroy your game and the experience for the player, okay? So please avoid that if you can. I know you can do it. So I'm going to leave a lot of resources here. If you love this kind of game design analysis, in fact, if you love much deeper analysis, there are a lot of fantastic sources for you. In particular, shout outs to the Joseph Andersons, Foxcade, Matthew Matosis, Mark Brown, Game Maker Toolkit. There are a lot of fantastic, really, really deep and thoughtful analysis essays. I would call them research. This is academic quality research and delving into of games. You just find them for free on YouTube. It's fantastic. So please go explore them. If you want to get into formal game design in academia in game design, there are lots of fantastic institutions out there you can learn from. University of Southern California, Carnegie Mellon and their Entertainment Technology Center, right? Michigan State University has a top 10 game dev program that is just down the street, about an hour to the west in Lansing, okay? In-state rates, hey, if you're looking at game dev grad school, please consider Michigan State University, all right? That is actually where my mentor, the person who used to teach this course, who really gave us a fantastic foundation for this course, Jeremy Bond. That is where he currently teaches. What a tremendous faculty they have over there. So please look into these institutions if you're considering further studies in academia for game dev, okay? There are game design frameworks out there. I don't like them very much. I don't think they're particularly useful, but they are out there and people do find some use in them, okay? That is essentially it, everyone. That is all I have for you today. I hope you think and explore more about game design, right? This is an engineering class, but part of an MDE and part of leaving, and entering the wider world is exploring other disciplines, right? And really feeling the magic and the value in all of these incredible disciplines out there that you didn't spend the last 4 years studying, but that will have an impact on your engineering going forward, okay? Engineering does not exist in a vacuum, okay? From project management to art and graphic and advertising support, right? To logistics, all of this has an impact on our engineering systems, right? They say that a coder knows how to program. A coder can build a system, but an engineer understands the context that allows those systems to survive and thrive. Okay? So as a well-rounded engineer, you must understand more than just how to program something and how to make it work. You can make something work, but can you make it work in a team? Can you make it work in a big org? Can you make it work for a wide diversity of customers and situations and users? Okay? You can do that by understanding these other disciplines. Okay, and that's what we're going to work on in 494 in addition to engineering great and reusable and impactful systems. Okay? So anyway, please have a fantastic week. Please work on P1. Be very quick on the draw. If you have problems, go to Piazza, ask some questions. Don't be afraid. Don't be shy. And please, if you have some spare time this weekend, enjoy the Joseph Anderson game design analyses, the Matthew Matosis game design analyses on YouTube, the Mark Brown videos. Please go look at those extremely entertaining videos, extremely high quality and well researched and great analysis too. Okay? Okay, I'm going to stick around for probably about 5 to 10 more minutes. I'll throw some music on, and you can ask me any questions that you've got, chat. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next time on Monday for a lecture on player guidance. Okay? See you then. Does it sound like that's playing slowly to anyone else? That song just doesn't sound right to me. Very strange. That's way too fast. Does anyone know what this song is from? So as far as bugs in P1, you should focus on making sure the game is playable and testable, but I wouldn't focus too much on bugs quite yet, particularly if you feel like you're behind. If you have extra time, if you feel like you're on schedule, then yes, absolutely, fix your bugs, make things more authentic, but remember, for P1 Milestone and for P1 Alpha, it only matters that the feature is in the game. Right? It can be a bit buggy, it can be a bit authentic, right? You won't lose points for bug. You will lose points for bugs and non-authentic elements on P1 Gold, which is coming up, but it's not here yet, okay? So, when will P1 Milestone grades be out? We talked about that last lecture. P1 Milestone grades will hopefully be out Friday evening or Saturday, okay? That should give you about 3 to 4 days to include any feedback, patch any things up that we mention in your feedback, okay? Okay, so the Chinese translations, I know they're not very good. I know they're funny. The reason they're there is that I teach a Chinese game development camp in Shanghai just about every summer. And so some of this material gets reused for that. And because of that, I put in just some tiny things to help any students who maybe they're okay with English, but not super comfortable yet. So that can help them understand the point of the slide, even if they don't understand all the details on the slide. So that's the reason they're there. I'm not sure if they work super well. I've been told that they're kind of funny. I've not been told we should get rid of them, so we haven't gotten rid of them yet. Question about next project, which is Project 2. Would a fighting game be allowed, or do we have to make something that's primarily a single-player experience? So that's a complicated question. Technically, you do not. You can create a multiplayer game. You can create a multiplayer game, but it must be programmed to work with Parsec. So, or it has to have online play. You should not be doing online play for P2. So we'll have to use Parsec. Parsec is a technology, you can Google it, that allows you to essentially stream a game to some friends, and the friends stream you inputs, right? So it uses streaming to allow people to play in multiplayer games locally, even when they're not together, okay? So basically it fakes local multiplayer. And it does an okay job of that. It's not the best, but it's okay. So if you really want to do a multiplayer game, you can do that. However, if you want to make a fighting game, consider that single-player fighting games exist, and they can be very, very fun and very engaging. So you might consider that too. Okay, what other questions do we have? When I think of mechanics with uninteresting decisions, I tend to think of progression blocking items in Zelda, something that, like the grappling hook in Wind Waker, that simply lets you swing to a previously inaccessible area. It doesn't feel like there's any risk, and it only engages you in the short term when you see a bar you can swing from. How would you add more consequence and long-term decisions to a mechanic like this? So I think one of the issues is that this can be executed really well. This can be executed very poorly. And I think one of the issues you mentioned is that, oh, I got the hook shot, right? I got the hook shot. Okay, well, I mean, there's not a whole lot of decision making with the hook shot. And the reason is, it's just whenever you see a bar, it's just a sign, hey, use the hook shot, right? It's not really a decision. You don't really need to experiment or think about, okay, where do I use the hook shot? When should I use the hook shot? What can the hook shot do in this new situation? It's always the same. You see a bar, you use the hook shot. You see a bar, you use the hook shot, right? And so that's really, you know, it's a disappointing implementation of a really good idea. And I think that many games do this very well. If you think about games like Super Metroid, where you get a new power, right? You see a lot of interesting situations that you can't quite address yet. And you get a new power, like the Ice Beam, that allows you to shoot enemies and freeze them, and then stand on them. There isn't an obvious tell that you need to use the Ice Beam at any given place, right? There's not a sign that says use the Ice Beam here, right? Or an obvious icon that says you should use the Ice Beam. The game kind of asks you to make the connection between this Ice Beam has increased your agency in the environment, right? So it's now up to the player to remember, wait, you know what? I think there was this place with lava where I could shoot and make platforms. But wait a second, there was also a place with this super high vertical room. And oh wait, it had flying enemies, so I could shoot them and use them as platforms there. Or maybe there's a puzzle where I need to freeze an enemy to stop them from chasing me, like with the Metroids, right? So it's a case of you're given a new mechanic. That mechanic has a wide range of uses. And that mechanic's use isn't telegraphed to you. It isn't like explained to you or signaled that you need to use it here, right? So you're given a lot of flexibility, and the game really respects you to make the connection and experiment and discover interesting ways that you can use the new mechanic. So I think it's definitely a case of just execution quality. Sometimes this kind of thing where you get a new item, you can use it in new places, is executed really well, and I think sometimes it's executed in a really unengaging way. So that's my take on the topic. Okay, a fun, non-traditional fighter I've played is Dungeon Fighter Online. It's an MMO, but unless you do the end game, it's basically single player. Yeah, I've definitely, I haven't played that game, but I've heard of it. Another game that does really good, like, single player combat is Super Smash Bros. That does a pretty darn good job. I don't know. I tend to enjoy just general arcade modes. So games like Power Stone are very easy to pick up and pretty fun to play single player. Getting new items, trying out new characters, right? New abilities in different situations. You can also think of fighting games as like beat-em-ups. So Streets of Rage, one of my favorite games this year, extremely engaging game, is Streets of Rage 4. Which you can get on Steam if you want. It's not too expensive. And this game is just incredible. It's so fun to play single player. It's definitely a fighting game. It's a beat 'em up. Lots of different moves to try, different characters to try, different situations to be in. Fun enemy AI. It's a good time. I love beat 'em ups. Okay, any other questions, chat? I'll give you, how about 2 more minutes? I'm gonna leave it. Actually, I'll give you 4 more minutes. I'm gonna leave at 1:50, okay? Or when my viewer count goes to 0. That's a pretty good sign. Yeah, I remember my first time in New York City, and I remember my first time in Shanghai, and now just no city feels big to me anymore. Ann Arbor feels like an extremely small town, and when you realize it, when you really think about it, the USA is a very small country in terms of population. There are not that many people in this country, so it's very impressive what it manages to accomplish, regardless. Yeah, you have a good weekend too, Novicat. Two minutes, team. 2 minutes. Ask me any questions you've got. Okay. Take care, everyone. Have a good weekend.